It's time to chat, as we always do at about this time. I'm very excited for today's conversation because it's going to be a little bit lighthearted. It seems to me that we are still extremely fixated, both sides of the aisle, on the GOP House Speaker selection, and I find that immensely uninteresting. So I think we should talk about something else. It turns out that all the hold on a second. Andy's messaging me. Oh, okay, cool. It turns out that all of the selections are wrong, and everybody's wrong on both sides of the aisle, and the only people who are really winning are the people who are kind of watching and laughing at this. So that's exactly what we could choose to do, but at the same time, I think it's more important to focus on other stuff. So I do have a few other things for us to talk about, but before I get started, I want to show Andy the link to this so that he can tweet it out. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, I get so lost on my own computer. It's nonsense. I had it all perfectly set up, and now he's messaging saying that he wants this link, which I now can't find. Ugh, I don't care. All right, he's going to have to figure it out for himself. He's a grown man, and he's very good at tech stuff, so I believe in him. I want to start with some good news, though, and that here is that Hamlin's doctors are saying that it appears that he's going to have recovered his neurological condition and function, and that's very good news. That's wonderful. That's very exciting. I know that a lot of argument has gone back and forth about this because he did have a very serious hit. But people are also saying that it could have been caused by a vaccination. We don't even know if he was vaccinated. And I will say that for my part, based on what I saw, because I watched the video of the hit, it looks like he was hit with a fairly small, localized strike with a shoulder, I believe. I don't remember if it was the right or left shoulder. But I think that could have been enough to strike the heart in such a way to cause this condition that everybody was throwing around the other day, which basically interrupts the cardiac rhythm, which is not something that I had seen. I think it's relatively rare. I think it's more prevalent in sports. I will say it is uncommon for people to be carried off the field to do CPR on the field and to be carried off on a stretcher to go in an ambulance. But there's a first time for everything, and sports injuries are not uncommon. I'm very glad he's about to make a full recovery. You guys can let me know if you think this is a vaccine injury or if you think it's actually something more natural. More native. I'm curious. Somebody says the strike was not that direct. Okay, so how often during MMA fights, because he's referencing MMA fights, are people struck directly in the center of the chest? Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the, I forget what it's called, the complex there in the center of your chest. It's the, oh my gosh, I don't know why I can't remember this. There's a... Yeah, I can't remember. At the bottom of the rib cage in the middle, there's a very specific area where you can hit and supposedly kill somebody by causing an interaction in their heart, from my understanding. I wish I could remember what it was called. I'm sure you guys can tell me. Solar plexus. There we go. Okay, solar plexus. I was thinking like manubrium, but I know that that's the bone up higher, and I couldn't remember the name of that bone at the end. The solar plexus, if you hit somebody in the solar plexus, you're going to have a problem because there is connection there, I believe, to the heart, and that could be causing a cardiac issue as well. But you guys are welcome to argue with me in the comment section. I'm fully open to interpretation because we don't really know what happened. I do think it would be in the public interest to know if he was vaccinated and if this could have been caused by that. But I think based on the fact that it happened immediately after he was struck, I kind of have a hard time believing it was influenced by the vaccine unless it weakened his cardiac system, which is entirely possible. I'm open to all information. I'm really curious and hope we come up with some actual solutions. But two interesting things happened today, and I really need to tell you guys about them. Joe Rogan was wrong and Cardi B was right. And we're going to start with Joe Rogan. And then we're going to talk about Cardi B because they're both very interesting cases. Okay, so I don't know if you guys saw this tweet that was floating around from a supposed doctor, and we're going to read it. And I think we're going to show an image. Yeah, image of the doctor's tweet. Supposed doctor who apparently doesn't exist. Very fascinating. Joe Rogan is forced to delete part of his latest podcast after blasting fake tweet by doctor claiming she'd happily let COVID vaccine kill her because her heart was in the right place. Ironic. Joe Rogan deleted part of his podcast in which he blasted a tweet that was proven to be fake. He displayed the tweet in which a doctor says she will never regret the vaccine even if it turns out I injected actual poison. Dr. Natalia then goes on to disparage anti-vaxxers who refuse to get the jab. Rogan said it was an example of the hysteria surrounding COVID vaccines over the past few years, but he tweeted on Thursday that he'd found out the tweet was doctored. Geez. Happens to the best of us, unfortunately. R/not the B, right? Or whatever. Controversial podcaster Joe Rogan was forced to delete part of his most recent episode in which he lambasted a tweet that was proven to be fake. In this episode, originally posted on Wednesday, Rogan displayed a tweet from an account claiming to go by the name Dr. Natalia, in which she says she'll never regret the vaccine, even if it turns out she injected actual poison, which would kill her. She explains her heart was in the right place. Rogan said the tweet offered a fascinating perspective and used that tweet as an example of the hysteria surrounding COVID vaccines over the last few years. But overnight, the team at the Joe Rogan Experience were informed that the tweet was actually doctored and rushed to remove the segment from the podcast. The move comes 1 year after musicians like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell pulled their music from Spotify to pressure the streaming service to remove Rogan's show over what they claimed was Rogan's COVID misinformation. Yeah, and that didn't end up working out well for them in the end because Joe Rogan is uncancelable. So here's the actual tweet, which apparently was doctored. I saw this tweet floating around. I thought it was ridiculous if true, but I know at the same time you can never be sure what's satirical and what's not. And I don't know if this is satire or just doctored, but it's total nonsense. I will never regret the vaccine, even if it turns out I injected actual poison and have only days to live. My heart, I'm assuming, is and was in the right place. I got vaccinated out of love while anti-vaxxers did everything out of hate. If I have to die because of my love for the world, then so be it, but I will never regret or apologize for it. Okay, well, that's pretty inflammatory. You can't even tell that that's doctored anymore. People are getting crazy. Let's see this. Yeah, so somebody tweeted out, because Joe Rogan has a huge podcast, somebody was commenting on him speaking to this tweet, which is probably what brought it to their attention. Joe Rogan reacts to a doctor's insane tweet with Brett Weinstein and how we should treat each other post mass formation psychosis. So it's somebody who's clearly on the side of not trusting vaccines. Rogan delved back into the issue and into the efficacy of COVID vaccines in his discussion with evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein on Wednesday when he displayed the doctored tweet. It read, "I will never regret the vaccine, even if it turns out..." Yeah. I know. I like that they summarize everything, but then they end up repeating themselves throughout the course of the article if they're not careful. So here they're showing this private account, protected account from Dr. Natalia. Dr. Natalia's Twitter page was locked in the afternoon and she replaced her profile picture with a plain black circle. The idea that you wouldn't be upset you injected actual poison when you were thinking that this was somehow going to save people and save the world is so insane that wouldn't bother you, he said in a video of the now deleted clip that was posted to Twitter. But you are uncharitably characterizing all people who are hesitant in getting an experimental medical intervention that's never been tried on mass amounts of human beings in human history, and that there's no long-term data to suggest anything safety, dangers, or risks. Rogan went on to say, "This woman's take on this, in my opinion, is a perfect encapsulation of the ideological capture that you see on social media." And I don't think there's anything wrong with his analysis. I think that he's totally right to analyze it that way. And I think that while this tweet was not factual, I personally have seen tweets from people calling for death and destruction. And I want to raise a question with you guys later on about the death idea, because there are lots of people who are on Twitter calling for children to be taken away, jobs to be lost, people to be unemployable, for them to suffer. Basically, I seem to recall someone tweeting melodramatically about shooting someone in the stomach and then telling them, sorry, it's just, we're all going to die someday. It's just a force of nature, when he was talking about engaging with people who said something like, we're all going to die someday. I'd choose not to get the vaccine. People actually wish this, and these tweets were not doctored. So I will throw this question to you guys because I caught some flack for it on Twitter, and it raised an interesting conversation. Do you think it is unethical to say that somebody who died from the vaccine was receiving their just desserts? I'm trying to say this carefully. Receive their just desserts if they wished death on people who refused the vaccine. Because this is something that I came up with on my own, and everybody was like, you're a horrible person, you're calling for their death. And I'm like, they were calling for my death. I don't know what to tell you. If they called for people's death and then they died of the vaccine injuries, I don't know what to say to that. And I don't think it's crazy or unethical to say, I think that that's karmic justice, if you will. But I was immensely shamed for that, which I think I found kind of interesting because I was like, this is exactly what these people have been doing. And I'm not doing anything but observing the fact that they died. And I'm sorry that they died, but it strikes me as a form of karmic justice. But I digress on that point. I just thought that was something interesting that came up. Joe Rogan goes on to say, I was informed last night that this tweet is fake. The show was already out, so we initially decided to post a notice saying we got tricked, then later thought it best to just delete it from the episode. Sincerest apologies to everyone, especially the person who got hoaxed. Yeah, for sure. That's not cool at all. I don't like when people like go in and edit tweets to make it look like somebody said something they didn't say. I only reference tweets that I saw myself on the Twitter platform from the actual person in question, but it is very easy to get fooled. So I think that this is honestly just a way of saying that we should probably just constantly be vigilant and constantly be questioning, verifying everything. I mean, you don't have to be a journalist to go and verify whether somebody said what it looks like they said. If they didn't actually say it, it won't appear on their timeline. And you have other ways of confirming it. You can probably find fact checkers who will immediately tell you if something is not favorable, for example, to conservatives. They'll set the record straight, which is useful in some regards. But let's see what you guys are thinking. Woo! Waffle Sensei is here. Yay, $10. Thank you for your super chat. I appreciate it. Hi. We are not them, so I think it's understandable to say it's karma, but not the best course to win people over. Of course not. People need an opportunity to realize they were wrong and be brought over. Yeah, I'm a little concerned that people have been saying, let people die, take people's children from them, ruin their jobs, ruin their lives. I think they've been hearing that for so long that it's going to become increasingly easy to say, that's what you wanted to do to me. You are not going to find any pity from me when the shoe is on the other foot. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like COVID might have been one of the biggest things that kind of pushes us towards social disharmony. Nothing would surprise me for sure. I wish that weren't the case. I wish things were otherwise. It makes me kind of sad that anybody even thought that it was a good idea to tweet something like, oh, I think they should lose their jobs. I think they should lose their children. I think they should lose their lives for the crime of disagreeing with me. I have such an issue with that. It really hurts my heart on a very spiritual level in a way that it's not cool to talk about if you're a conservative. But I think that it's a serious problem that we need to consider as we look to the future and try to create some kind of harmony again, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. I don't think we should stoop to their level. Yeah, that's fair. Just fear for my family that took it and hope they don't meet the same fate. Yeah, for sure. That's true. That's always the case. I'm definitely concerned, especially for my younger brother who got vaccinated because he was in the military, and now I'm concerned because these things are happening to young men. I have a problem with that. He didn't delete it. I just listened to it. When they got to that part, they put up a message that says fake tweet, but it actually falls in line with what Sean Penn said. So Joe Rogan himself said that they deleted the episode. So I don't know. Maybe they had, maybe they started by putting up that sign and then finished by actually just taking it down. Give us a minute to tune in. Haven't even tweeted the link yet. Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. We'll have to coordinate this a little better. I think I need to make him a user on the channel, but this isn't something that I've, you know what? I got to figure out how Tim set me up with account access, and then I can do that for Andy. A lot to think about. A lot of details that I didn't actually take any part in before I started at Timcast. A lot of this stuff was already up on the system before I joined the team. But anyway, Live every weekday at 6 p.m. That's correct. Lids, glad to see you live. Sour Patch Kids, got nothing new. That's entirely correct. They do not. I'm far lower in sugar and far higher in fat, unfortunately. All right, let's move on from the wrong to the right. First, we had Joe Rogan. He was unfortunately incorrect. Typically, he's pretty factually correct. So let's look at who was right. We have Cardi B, and I will give you a fair warning. There's a little bit, a lot bit. Oh no, I don't want to skip ahead to that. Oh no, you guys got a sneak peek of our next topic because I'm trying to get rid of this bar over here. Cardi B is going to tell us her unvarnished thoughts. She's going to show us her crazy nails. And let's hear what she has to say.
When I be complaining about food prices, and y'all motherfuckers be like, "Ain't you rich? Why you complaining about lettuce? Why you complaining about this?" That just goes to show me when you become successful, when you have money, you're gonna go broke soon because y'all not budgeting. I get a summary of the money that's being spent in my home every week. So when I'm starting to see that like groceries is like tripling up, it's like, hey, yo, what the fuck is going on? I want to see for myself what the fuck shit is being spent on. And like when I go to the fucking supermarket, like I went to a supermarket, I'm seeing that everything tripled up. That like lettuce was like $2 a couple of months ago, and now it's like fucking $7. Of course, I'm gonna say something. The fuck? Because if I think that shit is crazy, I can only imagine what middle class people or people in the hood is motherfucking thinking. So yes, I'm going to say something. The fuck? And I have a big platform, so I do want anybody that's responsible of these fucking prices to put that shit the fuck down. They're gonna see my shit, they might put it down. So shut the fuck. Let me tell you something. When I be complaining.
Okay, so I think that one time through that was enough. I think that was our daily dose of swearing. I know that her nails certainly caught my attention, and somebody on my Twitter asked how she performs her daily ablutions, i.e. cleanses herself with those nails. And I was reminded that in the hospital, they told us that we couldn't have fake nails because you'd get a lot of gram-negative bacteria under them for reasons unknown. I think that Cardi B is right in her assessment, and I'm glad that she's speaking up. First of all, let's just get that straight. I'm glad that she's speaking up, and I think that she's correct. I will say I know that she voted for it. I will say that I know that she endorsed Joe Biden, but she's always been kind of paying attention to where the money is going. She was the one who was asking the questions about where the F is my money going when she looked at her taxes. I'm glad that she's paying attention. I'm glad that she's thinking about people who are middle to lower class. That's so unusual from a person who's well-to-do. It seems to me that she really remembers her roots, and I know she has a shady history of drugging guys and doing all sorts of crazy, unhinged, crazy things. That doesn't matter. What matters is that she has a big platform and she's waking people up to what's happening. And I think that's valuable. I think we need to take our wins where we can. I know that nobody's perfect. I know that she certainly isn't, and I certainly don't agree with her on everything. And it is true, yes, that she voted for it. But at the same time, I feel like she's taking this journey through the economy right now, and she's taking her whole audience with her. Because you have to know how many followers she has. Like, she is a force. She has 27.5 million Twitter followers, okay? Her take is important. This is the stuff that creates culture, whether we like it or not. Because the right has left the culture to the left for so long, what we come up with is these insane nails and people of, questionable moral principles guiding us. And we need to take wins where we can. What we could do here is have some kind of outreach to her from somebody who's cool, but who's also right-wing, who says, hey, this is happening because of left-wing policies. And these are left-wing policies that you voted for. And this is like a direct correlation that could be made. I wish I knew of somebody who could and would reach out to her about this because it's so important. And I feel like the right just does not have a method of reaching out and opening people's eyes about this because this is important stuff. And this is the stuff that people see on an everyday basis. Like, this is not something that you can really avoid unless you are super, super wealthy and you know which side your bread is buttered on. So you're not going to say anything about it. The fact that she decided to look at her bills and the fact that she was like, what is going on with groceries? So she herself went to the grocery store to make sure probably that she wasn't being robbed by whoever it was that shops for her is kind of great. I think that's awesome. And I think I'm really glad to see somebody in a position of privilege trying to say something, trying to speak up for the people, because I myself have wondered this too. I am so grateful, thankful, and blessed, etc., to be in a situation where we can afford to live life. This is not a position I ever thought I would be in. I used to make $17,000 a year. I talk about this often. Somebody pointed out that Cardi B was a stripper, so she's acutely aware of economics, probably more so than most economists these days. I remember when I made $17,000 a year, I had to live at home with my family because rent even then was such that I would not have had any money to do anything else other than pay rent. So now when I look at this economy, when I look at all the inflation that's cursing everything, I can't imagine how people are getting along making very little money. But at the same time, we also know, we went to the bookstore today and it was chock full of people at midday on a weekday. And we were like, why is this happening? And then I was like, oh yeah, we live in one of those states that means that it's likely easier to make money not going to work than it is going to work. It's not good. I don't like it. It's not the way it should be. But at the same time, when you're earning $17,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year and rent costs $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment, you're going to have problems making ends meet. And I kind of diverge with a lot of conservatives when it comes to this kind of thinking, because a lot of conservatives say you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, work harder, work more, do better. I had 3 jobs and I went to school. I earned $17,000 and I lived with my parents. I was pulling myself up as hard by my bootstraps as I possibly could, and I still was not getting ahead. In fact, if I hadn't had the opportunity to work with Tim Pool and to meet my wonderful husband, I probably would be still doing the exact same thing and struggling through school, ultimately probably getting a degree that would have capped out at $50,000 a year, even after 10 years experience, because I knew that my particular field was not going to be lucrative, but I found it very interesting and I thought it was something worth pursuing. It struck me as very meaningful. I liked being a nurse aide. That was what I did before. Also very meaningful. All that to say, I diverge with most conservatives when I say things have gotten significantly more difficult since boomers were young. Things are not like they were when our parents were kids. I hear stories all the time, and we actually went through one of these stories from Reddit where this guy was talking about his grandmother and how they were a single income household with children. They had nice cars, they had a house, and she never worked a day in her life. And her husband was some manual laborer. And that was so crazy to me. I can't imagine a situation like that being the case today. Can you? This is exactly rolls into my mother asking me why women didn't want to stay at home with their families. And she said it very compassionately, and I completely understand her woebegone question. But the fact is that we can't. And it gets even worse if you do decide to go to college and you choose wrongly with your degree. And this is something that we've been pushing on millennials for ages. A lot of us bought into this idea, and a lot of us have all of this student loan debt now. It feels hopeless. It feels like nothing's ever going to change. We'll never pay it off. So I can't help feeling like we've been lied to at every front, and I feel like Cardi B is finally saying a little piece of something that's true, and I'm grateful to her for that. If only because she has 27.5 million followers. I think that's a great thing, and I'm glad that she's using her own platform. So here's what she has to say about 21 hours ago. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So people were giving her a hard time. She goes, "Not necessarily because of me, but if we bring enough awareness to inflation, you never know." And here's what I like to see. Here is Scott Pressler. "Inflation is skyrocketing because of reckless spending by Joe Biden and the Democrats. With all due respect, you're not going to end inflation by continuing to support Democrats' $1.7 trillion bills." Good for Scott. Good for Scott. Scott is really an excellent example of what is right with the right-wing movement. And he is a one-man persistence, as he calls himself. And I could not be happier to see him speaking up and to see him in her comments. All right, I think that's enough about that. I know you guys have a lot to say about Cardi B, so let me read what you guys are thinking. Where's my movie portrait, Andy? Oh my gosh. I can't believe Andy promised a shirtless picture. Not to advertise, but Redacted ran a great video today about COVIDs. Oh, interesting. I've run out of OnlyFans material, says Waffle Sensei, in all the right places. Yeah, someone commenting no sound. I know that when I first started playing it was really quiet. Somebody commented lizard claws, and I think these claws are longer even than lizards. I would compare them to talons on a bird. Whatever. People can wear whatever they want. I don't really care. It's not really good for you just because you do get gram-negative bacteria under them, and that's never a good plan. She voted for it. Yep. Bro, her nails are crazy, but she got a point though. Yeah, literally got a point. She's got 10 points if you think about it. That's probably what it is. Yeah, finally someone rich sees us poor and are struggling. I mean, when is the last time someone in her position said something like this? I can't recall anybody saying anything like this. And I think that what she's doing is kind of positive and powerful. I think that's a good thing. Let's see. Just Josh and LOL was. She did support Biden, but I'm glad she's saying something now. Yeah, she's very misled, but I find myself really happy that she's paying attention to this stuff at all. I think that's overwhelmingly positive, and hopefully that's the case. Same with Katy Perry. That's something I noticed. Katy Perry voted for either the Republican or the independent for California governor, and she showed her voting, and she turned off comments on her Instagram post, and I thought that was so interesting because I happen to know that her parents go to conservative meetings. I know that she was raised in the church, and she obviously has some kind of pushback on Hollywood, but it is how she earns her money. And I know that it can be really, really hard when overwhelming cultural pressure says not to say anything. So hopefully Katy Perry gets the nerve to speak up too. I think that would be great. I think it's just expected for all celebrities to vote Democrat, so when they turn around and start turning on them, it's always a win, 100%. Andy says he is a man of his word. Unfortunately, he is indeed. I have no idea who she is or what she does. Seems a bit of a chav. I think chav is the British way of saying kind of low class and tacky. That's probably a pretty fair analysis, but she does have social impact, and I think that her speaking up like this is a really good thing. We're extremely blessed to be able to support ourselves comfortably enough to put in time to start a YouTube channel instead of working second and third jobs. Exactly. And I count my blessings. Like even in my 20s, I was running around like crazy. There were times when I just wouldn't go home. I had a can of peanut butter and a change of clothes in my car, and I would just go from one job to the next. And I don't think people realize that I'm serious when I say that, but I was working 80-hour work weeks and eating like canned tuna in my car. It's so classy to say that you're homeless. I wasn't really homeless. I had a place that I could go, absolutely, but my family lived out of town, so I would go from one place to the next in town and save some time and gas, but I don't know. I only know her by her name. I don't do trends in music. You're probably best off not listening to her music because it's not really uplifting in any way. She swears pretty much as much in her songs as she does in her speech. What a great country we live in. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's a mess. It really is a mess, especially right now. Anytime I think it can't get worse, I see that the Biden administration has done something more, and it's never good. But we are here because we believe in keeping up our hopes and creating cultural cohesion. We think it's really important. So let's see here. Not your fault, Andy. I think all the algorithms think I'm a robot, so don't get any notifications or anything. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Turn your notifications on and off again. I think that that might be part of the problem. Sour Patch based lids. Yeah, I have a serious problem with the word based, and I'm going to explain this to you guys, and then we're going to move on to why butts are racist, because that's really good too, let me tell you. The word based is as postmodernist as it gets because it revolves along with whatever one person thinks at any one given time. So a socialist will look at Bernie Sanders and say, haha, he's based. Or they'll look at Shoe on Head and say, haha, she's based. Or they'll look at something crazy that some right-wingers say and say, are they, unexpectedly based? I find that the word based means anything and everything, and by that extension, by virtue of that quality, it means nothing, because it means whatever the person using it wants it to mean. And I don't know anything about the person using it. So I'm glad that you think I'm based. That means that you agree with me. But I don't know what you believe. I don't know if you think I'm based for the wrong reasons. Maybe you think I'm mildly white supremacist. That would not be good. I would not like to be considered based by a white supremacist, but that's just my diatribe about based and cringe. It's all just so completely subjective. I don't know. We have finally gained access to our new studio space. We'll be moving in and setting up very soon. That's true. Very exciting developments. I'm getting everything all cleaned up, cleaned out, getting everything out of the way and positioning everything to where it should be. And soon we will have much more space. The right has left. Hee hee. Yes, correct. How are the calendar shots going? Oh my gosh. I have a good one of Andy from when we were at Timcast. He got up on the little skee ball table. I think that was what it was called. It's like this long platform that rises at an angle, and he was posing kind of like a, French girls type thing, drinking some coffee. It was very attractive. I liked it a lot. Fully clothed, obviously. That's how that calendar will be looking. Only Pants. Sounded like she said Only Pants, which would be a good name for a topless website. I'm old and my ears don't always work. I really like that. I like OnlyFans. I like Only Pants as the version of OnlyFans that is like, I don't know, showcasing jeans. I think that would be fun. Hi, PCC crew. Hoping people are coming over from Pop Culture Crisis. I tried to actually time my live stream partly so that people could enjoy both Pop Culture Crisis and my show. I think the overlap is real and I respect it. I love it. Only Pants. Let's do it. What are two of the most important jobs? Says Oyvind A. Holm. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Nurses and teachers. It's a shame they're not paid better. Probably the reason for the wage gap. That's very interesting that you noticed that, and it's very interesting you're commenting from Norway, because a study that they performed in Scandinavia showed that given complete freedom to choose whatever job they wanted to do, females chose to work with people, men chose to work with things. And that is the explanation, part of the explanation for the wage gap. The other explanations are women want to work part-time, women tend to have kids, and women are less aggressive in asking for pay raises. I really think that pretty much summarizes it. But in my experience, people always want one thing to be true. They don't want it to be multifactual. But the fact of the matter is, there's always multiple factors. There's multiple factors in how much you weigh. There's multiple factors in how much what you look like. There's multiple factors in how tall you are. But people tend to want to say, oh, it's a wage gap. It's because of sexism, period. There is no other explanation. And that's just wrong. Anything that says there is only one explanation is wrong. I'm telling you that right now. Thank you, Oyvind. I appreciate it. $8 for a carton of eggs. Bad news. I know, man. Not just Biden. Trump gave out the stimulus checks. Yeah, they blew out that budget. Nobody seems to have cared about the budget in a long time. Andy says, follow me on OnlyPants. Oh my gosh. You guys giving him ideas, I swear. All right, guys. Let's see here. Oh my, butts are racist. What the hell? Sad Chuck Horn. Okay, so this is our next topic. Let's hop right over to that. So let's see what this article has to say. I'm actually really excited about this. This is from Unheard, which I believe is an unwoke site. So we're going to break it down. Is it racist to like big butts? This is from Kat Rosenfeld. I think I follow her on Twitter. She's great. The derriere discourse guilt trips white women. Oh, interesting. The human butt has long been the object of all manner of obsessions. Yes, we worry over it, its size, its shape, whether or not it has cellulite on it, how it looks in a pair of jeans. But now, a new source of concern emerges: the alarming possibility that one's butt, or at least one's relationship to butts generally, is racist. This is a very interesting topic, the kind of which I don't usually get into, but given that I own a butt, I thought it would be interesting to comment on. For this, we may think the existence of butts, a backstory, a new a new book by journalist Heather Radke. To be fair, it surely is not Radke's intention to inculcate racial anxiety in her readers. Butts feels like a passion project, deeply researched and fun to read, offering a deep dive into the history and culture of the human rear end. From the Venus callipyge, from whose name the word callipygian is derived. I don't know how that word is pronounced. That's probably not correct. To Buns of Steel, to Sir Mix-a-Lot's seminal rap celebrating all things gluteal. I really like the way this is written. Props to Kat. It is a topic ripe for well-rounded analysis. Oh my gosh. So to speak. But having been written in the very particular milieu of the 2020s America, Butts unfortunately falls victim to the contemporary vogue for viewing all matters of culture through a racial lens. All right, we've had our fun. Let's get down to business. The result is a work that not only flattens the butt, figuratively, but makes the book feel ultimately less like an anthropological study and more like an entry into the crowded genre of works which serve to stoke the white liberal guilt of the NPR tote bag set. Oh my, what a stunning indictment. The concept of cultural appropriation has always struck me as both fundamentally misguided and historically illiterate, arising from a studied incuriosity about both the inherent contagiousness of culture and the mimetic nature of human beings. But when it comes to the remixing of things such as textiles, hairdos, or fashion trends across cultures, the appropriate complaints seem at least understandable, if not persuasive. There's a conscious element there, a choice to take what looked interesting on someone else and adorn your own body in the same way. Here, though, the appropriate item is literally a body part, the size and shape of which we, rather notoriously, have no control over. And yet Radke employs more or less the same argument to stigmatize the appropriation of butts as often made about dreadlocks or bindies. And that really is not fair because, as she just said, you don't get any say in what you look like. And you also don't get a say in what you're attracted to. So let's rule that out right now. I know the left seems to think that we can change what we're physically and biologically drawn to. This is not the case. Absolutely not. And this is a case of utopian ideals colliding with reality. And it's something I observe all the time. And it's hilarious to watch because reality is particularly unbending. Miyamoto Musashi famously said, you must go along with the truth or you will live a lie. You have to bend to the truth or you'll end up living dishonest life. And I think that's exactly what the left is trying to do. The fact is that reality is truly unbending. It's the ultimate decider of what goes on and what doesn't. And I think that's why postmodernism strives to depart from it as much as possible. But let's continue. Don't know where I was, of course. This book is insistent on this front. Butts are a black thing, and liking them is a black male thing. And the appreciation of butts by non-black folks represents a moral error, cultural theft, or stolen valor, or some potent mix of the two. Among the scholars and experts quoted by Radke on this front is one who asserts that the contemporary appreciation of butts by the wider male population is coming from black male desire. Straight up, point blank. It's only through black males and their gaze, that white men are starting to take notice. To paraphrase a popular meme, fellas, is it racist to like butts? Good question. And gross. Don't like that. I don't like this idea that you can gauge someone's racism. It's so strange to me that we're viewing everything through the lens of racism right now, because there are so many other lenses to view things through, and it's just so myopic to only think on one front. But this is the role of leftism. It forces everyone to look through the same lens and reach the same conclusions. It treats us all like widgets in social justice world, and I have a great issue with that because it's so clear to me that people are so wildly different, that the world is so interesting because everyone is so wildly different, and we should definitely we should revel in that. Like the same way that we should revel in the differences in our cultures and the differences in different skin tones and backgrounds and ethnicities, we should revel in the fact that people are different. Every single one of us has a different outlook on the world. And when we all come together, this was the American dream and this was the great melting pot ideal. When we all come together and we have the same basic set of standards, we can bring our super interesting cultural backgrounds and we can bring our family upbringings and we can bring our religious beliefs together and bring the best out of each one of them and make the world a better place. But this is what the left is pushing back against so hard. They hate it. This is why they hate everything that the US stands for, I'm convinced. Anyway, my little diatribe. Let us continue. It's only through black males and their gays that white men are starting to take notice. Is it racist to like butts? Perhaps needless to say, a wealth of cultural artifacts from the aforementioned Venus sculpture to the works of Peter Paul Rubens to certain show tunes of the 70s belie the notion that white guys were oblivious to the existence of butts until black men made it cool to notice them. But the cultural legacy of the butt is undeniably entangled with a legacy of racism and eugenics, including a sordid and repellent history wherein certain anthropologists of the white male variety both fetishized the physiques of black women with ample backsides and conflated their peculiarities with savagery and promiscuity. I like that she's saying this too, because there is an element of history that needs to be dealt with that's not always pleasant. And that doesn't mean that every part of it is racist. It just means that we need to look at the whole thing and see where the issues are and try not to repeat them. Most prominent in this history is the case of Sarah Baartman, to whom Radke devotes an entire chapter plus countless references. Baartman was a member of the Khoikhoi tribe in South Africa, who in the early 1800s was coerced into traveling to Europe and participating in a freak show style exhibition in which onlookers gawked at and sometimes poked or grabbed her buttocks. If Baartman's feeling about this remains somewhat mysterious, the records at the time were ambiguous as to how voluntary her participation was. The motivations of the men who trafficked her are less so. Anthropologists of the time were obsessed with categorizing humans into racial hierarchy. It wasn't just Baartman's butt that fascinated them, but her entire body, including the shape of her skull and her elongated labia, which were held up as evidence that she, and hence all black women, were a lower order of human beings. See, this is what you should and could actually take issue with. This idea of actual racial profiling, where they were looking at people's God-given body parts and saying, you are weird and you are less than because you are different. I take great exception to that, and I don't think that there's anybody out there who would defend this in good faith, and I don't think it's right, and I'm glad that this lady brought this up, but at the same time, I still don't think that it's fair to say that everything should be racialized in this way, because if we do that, we're following the example of these anthropologists. We're just putting black people on a pedestal instead of denigrating them, and that's not any better. Certainly, it is impossible to do justice to the history of butts without devoting ample space to Baartman, but it's one thing to give them scrutiny to the fact It's one thing to give due scrutiny to the fact that some 19th century anthropologists indulged in the repugnant racial stereotyping of black women's bodies and body parts. It's another to replicate it on ourselves or to assume that other people are. That's called projecting. Radke does assume, though, repeatedly, persistently, and sometimes in spite of alternative theories or evidence to the contrary. This includes advancing the argument that bustles, the Victorian-era fashion that trended more than 50 years after Sarah Baartman's death, was inspired by her singular figure, and that white women were coyly, perhaps even consciously appropriating Baartman's silhouette in an act of racist fetishization. Notably, Radke is the first to acknowledge the obvious flaw in her argument. There is also a question of why a late 19th century woman would have wanted to look like Sarah Baartman, whose silhouette had been used as the quintessential example of Africans as subhuman, she writes. Why indeed? But Radke answers this question with some crude stereotyping of her own. White culture and fashion have both proved relentlessly adept at cherry picking throughout the centuries, finding a way to poach the parts of other people's culture, histories, and bodies that suit them and leave behind the rest. So in the same way that these 19th century anthropologists were considering black people subhuman, this lady now in the 21st century, I think we're still in the 21st century, is doing the same thing for white people and just throwing them under the bus because it's easy. I don't like that. I don't like it in the 19th century, and I certainly don't like it now. In fact, I like it even less now because she should know better. She should. A fully educated woman who's writing a book about this stuff should be 100% better educated than to make a statement like that. But I digress. I haven't read the book myself. Why would 19th century... Okay, why would the 19th century women have aspired to the silhouette of a sexually promiscuous savage? Because they were a bunch of Karens, that's why. And here the self-loathing contemporary white women reader is surely nodding along. By the time Butts comes around to analyzing the contemporary derriere discourse, its conclusions are all but foregone. The political is not just personal, but anatomical. Oh, it's all so tiresome. The book calls multiple women, including Jennifer Lopez, Kim Kardashian, and Miley Cyrus, to account for their appropriation of butts, which are understood to belong metaphorically, if not literally, to black women. The most scathing critique is directed at the then 21-year-old Cyrus, whose twerking at the VMAs is described as adopting and exploiting a form of dance that had long been popular in poor and working class black community and simultaneously playing into the stereotype of the hypersexual black woman. The mainstreaming of butts as a thing to be admired then is the ultimate act of Columbusing. The butt had always been there, even if white people failed to notice for decades. There is also the curious wrinkle in Radke's section history of twerking, which credits its popularization to a male drag queen named Big Freitas. The implicit suggestion is that this movement style is less offensive when performed by a man dressed as a woman than by a white woman with a tiny butt. Butts doesn't claim to be a story with a moral, but one nevertheless emerges. Everyone may have a butt, but butts are not for everyone. And it is worth noting that however much baggage it assigns to the white men who like butts, its implications are even more fraught for the white women to whom those butts are attached. One often gets the sense that non-black women are not supposed to have big butts, that those who do have accomplished something unnatural, if not outright suspicious. And you insist on having a butt, and really, do you have to? Then you must under no circumstances be proud of or accept positive attention for it, or, heaven forfend, make it a part of your brand. Ironically, the author of this book is herself a white woman with a large backside, a fact of which she periodically reminds the reader. And yet, Butts thoroughly subsumes its subject matter into the cultural appropriation discourse in a way that implicitly impugns all the non-black women who look, at least from behind, a hell of a lot more like Nicki Minaj than Kate Moss, women who perhaps hoped that their own big butts might be counted among those Sir Mix-a-Lot cannot lie about liking. It is also worth noting that the women hung out to dry by this argument are the same ones who other progressive identitarian rhetoric almost invariably fails to account for. The more it indulges in the archetype of the assless, willowy white woman, the more butts excludes it from the imagination of the poor and working class, whose butts, along with everything else, tend to be bigger. It fails to account, too, for those from ethnic backgrounds where the bigger butt, or as one of my Jewish great-grandparents might have said, a nice round tuchus is the norm. All told, Butts offers an interesting, if somewhat monomaniacal, look at the cultural history of the derriere. But as for how to view our backsides moving forward, especially if you happen to be a woman in possession of a big butt yourself, the book finds itself at something of a loss. Those in search of body positivity will not find it here. Radke is firm on this, that white women who embrace their big butts are guilty of what Toni Morrison called playing in the dark, dabbling thoughtlessly with a culture, an aesthetic, a physique that doesn't really belong to them. The best these women can hope for, it seems, is to look at their bodies the way Radke does in the final pages with a sort of resigned acceptance. Her butt, she says, is just a fact. On the one hand, this is better than explicitly instructing women to feel ashamed of their bodies, although implicitly one gets the sense that shame is preferable to confident, twerking alternative. But after some 200 pages of narrative about the political, sexual, cultural, and historical baggage with which the butt is laden, it feels a bit empty. A bit of a cop-out. It could even be said, not by me, but by someone else, that butts has a hole in it. And I can really tell that Kat waited the whole article to use that one. Holy moly. That was a great article. That was really well done, really well written, and I really enjoyed reading it. Unfortunate as it was, because I have personally made it my own brand to not criticize people for things that they have no control over. I will not criticize a woman for being a woman. I would never criticize a man for being a man because I am tall and I am a woman and I know that's unusual. So I won't call out a man for being short. Some hay was being made the other day on Twitter about Zelensky being 5'7", and I have to say I could not give less of a damn what height he is. I think he's causing serious problems in the world, and his height has nothing to do with it. Why don't you pick on something that's actually meaningful? This is the exact same problem we see with this book that this lady reviewed. The fact is that you can't just criticize things that nobody can change. We tried doing that. That was called racism. You can do that with it when somebody has like a higher BMI than you do. That's called fat shaming. You have skinny shaming. You have whitewashing. There's all sorts of things you can do to take advantage of and mock someone for things that they can't change. You can laugh at blonde women for being dumb. You can laugh at tall men for being skinny and gangly. You can always laugh at short men. It turns out our culture is fine with that. But I don't like the idea of laughing at people for something that they can't change. And I wish that the rest of the world would see it the same way. But I know that we live in a free market capitalist society, and if you can make money telling people to feel bad about having big butts, then by all means, that's your right to do so. If nobody buys it, I won't really be surprised. If it does damage to our culture, I also won't be surprised. But the fact is that you can make money doing it, and to that end, I just say, whatever. I am going to push back on it, and I'm very glad that Kat wrote that great article about it and recommend that all of you guys follow Unheard. Now let's see what your crazy comments are going to be. Oh goodness. What is Andy talking about? Andy is talking about food, it looks like. Patch Pants Studios, I like that. Patch Pants is awesome. Thank you guys. Waffles World, that's awesome. Oh my goodness. Lids.com. Oh, I like that. Guys, speaking of Dot, this is very important. I have a very important announcement to make. I know I'm running low on time. We are getting our puppy at the end of the month. Her name is Dot because we have a cat named Dip. So now we will have Dip and Dot. Very excited about that. Just wanted to share it with you guys. All right, let's see. Butts. Let's see. Let's crowdsource this, nominate names. Okay, so you guys are thinking about the name of our studio, so that will be fun. Let's see here. Who does not like rump roast? Nobody doesn't like rump roast. I don't think a lot of men are born before the age of the internet are too racist. National Geographic saved our puberty days. I don't think that's true at all. Like we mentioned during the course of that article, there actually were super, super, super racist people back in the 19th century. And of course, we know there was a legacy of racism before that. Really not cool. This chick is grasping at straws. Yeah, I'm assuming you mean the author of this book. I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of white guilt that comes out in a lot of these books, and apparently it's really what sells. Like you look at Robin DiAngelo and she's making a lot of money in that regard too, and apparently there's a market for it. So I just assume that if there is a market for it, it's going to be continuing to be made as we go on. Can we make small butts good again? Yes, if we can also make small boobs good again. I think that's a fair exchange. We should make small boobs great again. We should make small butts great again. We should make big butts great again. And we should make big boobs great again. And I think that's fair. All across the board. I played an MMO where someone asked something stupid and someone else would reply, in your pants. Yes, that's like in bed is the common rejoinder. So you say anything and someone else says in bed and it's very silly and you laugh at it. This person, I don't know if this is a bot, but they're just like naming food, and honestly, it's making me hungry. This is asinine. That's a fair analysis of that article. If only we wanted to go straight to our butts, then we do. Goodness gracious. AI artificial intelligence. If you eat too much spinach, then you have to go to the shop to get fixed. This is such trifling garbage. Who wastes their time writing ish like this? Thank you, Andy. I think that's fair. I think it's horribly unfair to come down on someone for something that they have no control over. And after so much body positivity being shoved down my throat, I'll be damned if I am ashamed of the way I look. That's not fair. Uncomfortable chairs depends on the butt. Butt lifts at age 70. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Pardon my French. Thank you, Andy. Come on, we're trying to be a family-friendly show here. All right, I came in partway through this article. I'm mildly confused. Basically, the thrust of the article is that she reviewed a book saying that having a big butt was something that only black women should have. Which is crazy to me because we really don't get to choose our genetics. We don't get to choose where our body fat deposits. And frankly, let's be real, having fat on your derriere is better than having it in your midsection. It's actually healthier. Visceral fat is very, very bad for you. That's fat in your abdomen, and it tends to be fat that develops around your midsection and gets in between your internal organs. That's not good. Want a bigger butt? Go do squats at the gym. Yes, that is a factor. It's also a genetic factor, 100%. I don't do squats and I don't worry about having a small butt. Let's leave it at that. Oh, for goodness sakes. Yes, rollerblading is a great way to gain more butt. That's Andy's advice. But wait, there's more. Lots and lots of jokes to that effect. I had to laugh at this article and I thought it was a lot of fun to read. Does this mean that Fruit Loops is marketed toward black girls, a Brazilian bird that likes toucans? Yeah, I think that's great. Was a good article. Yeah, Unheard is a really cool source if you guys haven't seen it before. So is saying butt now racist? That is the real question. Tom Cruise is short. It's okay. Tom Cruise is also a member of a creepy, creepy church. That's not okay. Being short, not something he can change and not a problem. Lydia Smith, 100,000 subscribers. That's right. We're going to will it into existence. Although that's not a huge deal. Oh yeah, Lydia Smith died with her last marriage. She's Mrs. Leiderman now. That's correct. Yes, Sour Patch Lids is Lydia Leiderman. Lydia, lids is a very strong ally for us short kings. Yeah, because it's not something, like, I need somebody on my team when it comes to saying, like, you're crazy if you think having a big butt is a bad thing. Guess what? I didn't get to choose that. And I'm not hitting the gym 24/7 doing a bunch of squats so I can have a big butt. That came with the territory of my mom being my mom and my dad being my dad. There was not a whole lot I could say. Oh, there's a hole in your argument, but we'll put a tail end of the train, put it on the caboose. Okay, Keenan, calm down there. Evangeline Lilly claimed she was bullied for her precocious looks in high school. Probably so. People make fun of each other based off our own ideas of attractiveness. Yeah, I think that a lot of this stuff is a lot of projection, which is unfortunate. Puppy? Yes, puppy. I'm very excited. Dot is going to be so cute. I'm going to come and show her to you guys, and then I'm going to probably hand her off to Andy because I'm sure she'll be piddling all over everything. What type of puppy? She is an Ashu. Her full name is sourpatchlids.me. That's what Andy says with emphasis on dot. I just thought her name was .com, which I thought was really cute too. Studio should be called Dippin' Dots World. Ooh, I like that. Andy, I like that idea. You want a good chuckle combining the butt and Cardi B stories? Check out the video from SNL, Bride of Funkenstein, I believe it's called. And yes, it was kind of funny. Yeah, SNL is at best kind of funny. Nicki Minaj was not the one who... Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it was Cardi B. I think a lot of people just try to find the most random of topics and then say, I can write and complain about that for 200 pages. I think that's fair. I think that's exactly what's happening here. This whole conversation is a huge in the innuendo. Oh, I see how you did it. I just thought that article was funny. And I thought it was a point of how... social justice can just infect everything and it brings poison to everything. And it's really sad and disappointing because these are some of the things that should be the best parts of life. Like they actually say that if you want a smarter child, you should search for a female partner with a larger posterior. And I don't think that that's actually connected in any way, but it's a really funny study and I like that a lot personally. It's just so dumb to make all of this stuff negative. There's no point in making everything, a downer. Why can't we have good things? You know what they say when, you know how they say, this is why we can't have nice things. I think social justice is why we can't have nice things, which I think is a pretty fair analysis. All right, we're going to read this last one at high speed because we need to get over to the store before it closes tonight. This is actually really important and a lot less fun and funny. than we were just talking about. Young adults are struggling with their mental health. Is more childhood independence the answer? That is a very interesting question. I'm glad you asked. Assistant Professor Brett Mallon begins his evening Zoom session at Kansas State University with a question. When students hear the word conflict, what associations do they make? Many first responses are decidedly negative. I would say avoid it at all costs, one student offers. Argument, awkward conversations, says another. The list grows as students make emotional associations they have with conflict, stress, discomfort, war. Only one student suggests that he thinks of conflict as an opportunity for growth. Interesting. This is Conflict Resolution, a non-credit workshop in an Adulting 101 series at Kansas State. The cheeky name, created by the Campus Wellness Center, belies its serious purpose, to fill in the gaps of missing life skills for students with classes that range from practicals, like how to make a budget, to the relational, like dealing with imposter syndrome. Students talk about conflict like it's this terrible thing, Mallon said in an interview. Is it that they're afraid of conflict, or are they lacking in any experience? Probably a little bit of both. Seminars and classes like Adulting 101 are becoming more common on college campuses. Though ranging in style and substance from one-offs on handling stress to full semester psychology courses on how to be happy, more universities are offering help to students struggling with stresses of everyday life and mental health challenges like anxiety and depression. But a growing body of evidence is beginning to suggest that the problem of adulting and mental health in college students may be rooted, at least in part, in modern childhood. Research shows that young people are lacking in emotional resilience and independence compared to previous generations. The problem has been growing in tandem with rising rates of anxiety and depression, perhaps exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and has left colleges scrambling to help and adapt. Some parents have been parenting differently. They have this value of success at all costs, said Dory Hutchinson, executive director of the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation at Boston University. I like to describe it as some kids are growing up developmentally delayed. Today's 18-year-olds are like 12-year-olds from a decade ago. They have very little tolerance for conflict and discomfort, and COVID just exposed it. I think that's fully fair. How modern childhood changed and changed mental health. Research shows that young people who arrive on campus with healthy amounts of resilience and independence do better both academically and emotionally. But today, more students of all backgrounds are arriving on campus with significantly less experience in dealing with life's ups and downs. Many even see normal adult activities as risky or dangerous. In a new study currently under review, Georgetown University psychologist Yulia Chentsova-Dutton looked at whether American college students' thresholds for what is considered risky was comparable to their global peers. Chentsova-Dutton and her team interviewed students from Turkey, Russia, Canada, and the United States, asking them to describe a risky or dangerous experience they had in the last month. Both Turkish and Russian students described witnessing events that involved actual risk, violent fights on public transportation, hazardous driving conditions caused by drunk drivers, women being aggressively followed on the street. But American students were far more likely to cite as dangerous things that most adults do every day, like being alone outside or riding alone in an Uber. The American students' risk threshold was comparatively quite low, according to Chentsova-Dutton. Students who reported they gained independence later in childhood, going to the grocery store or riding public transportation alone, for example, viewed their university campus as more dangerous. Those same students also had fewer positive emotions when describing risky situations. Chentsova-Dutton hypothesizes that when students have fewer opportunities to practice autonomy, they have less faith in themselves that they can figure out a risky situation. My suspicion is that low autonomy seems to have translated into low efficacy, she said. Low efficacy and combination of stress is associated with distress like anxiety and depression. This is what I think Jordan Peterson calls the Matthew principle, where if you succeed in a small way, you're much more likely to succeed at the next larger step. That's exactly what we see here. There's a snowballing effect when you find that you can trust yourself to do something. This is something that I actually really enjoyed learning about myself. I had a very stable, very upright upbringing, and as I was getting out into the world, I was doing these things that were challenging to me at the time, and I noticed that I was able to accomplish each thing as I did it. and I did have some small modicum of support, which I was grateful for. But as I did each thing, it became easier to do the next thing. And this is often the case with these. This is the whole point of growing up, right? You're supposed to be introduced to these new things that you are, just barely able to handle. And you're there with your parents, and your parents can help you if you need it, right? And then when it turns out that you can handle, for example, going to the bathroom by yourself, you're going to learn to do something new. You're going to learn to take a bath by yourself. You're going to learn to set the table by yourself. You're going to learn to help mom make biscuits. And it's a really great, really nice way of doing things that's very gradual, and you should gradually be building up your resistance to the idea that, oh my gosh, maybe I can't do this. I found it particularly satisfying to myself that I learned as I was growing that I could trust myself to tackle these big issues, like super challenging issues like managing going to the DMV, registering a car, dealing with the freaking government, and making sure that relationships were right. That one has proven to be, for me, a little bit harder, definitely, but I digress. It is what it is. And I think that as you find that you're successful in each one of these smaller things, it makes you much more comfortable. It makes you much more confident. I will say that my ability to judge character has always been relatively good. I have a few notable exceptions, but otherwise I can tell if someone is a bad actor from a long way away. And I couldn't tell you how I figure that out, but it guides me. Honestly, I find that to be very meaningful. And that's because I trust myself, because I've been put in situations where I needed to decide if I could trust someone or not. And sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, sometimes I was reserved because I wasn't sure. And pretty much universally, it paid off for me. And then that helped me learn to trust myself, which appears to be something that these kids are never being offered the opportunity to do, which is very sad. And I'm going to go to the end here just because it's 7 already, and I wanted to wrap it up a little bit earlier today so we could get into our last minute shopping we got to do. Experts say independence and autonomy are best formed and tested in childhood, but it's never too late to begin. At the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation at Boston University, Hutchinson and her team help college students diagnosed with mental illness continue their education and reach their goals, and that often begins with building their resilience and independent skills. The center that developed a curriculum that is focused not just on students, but parents and faculty as well. Families are a player at the table. No kidding, they're probably the most significant part. Parents benefit from coaching that shows them how to support their student without doing for them. Yes, helicopter parenting is a huge issue. Parents sometimes don't understand that protecting their child from failure and difficulty can be an obstacle to growth. Yeah, my parents told me that they probably wouldn't bail me out of jail if I ever found myself there. At least not immediately. At least not at first. And my dad recounted his experience. He spent one night in jail for something that I think was either a misunderstanding or just him being a little too aggressive. And he said that it really sharpened his mind. He was thinking about how he was going to explain himself to his parents, how he's going to avoid this happening again, what this would mean for his future. And it was a very significant, very meaningful experience for him, which is not something that most people would typically say. They wouldn't say, I think going to prison, going to jail for a night is a good idea. But for my dad, it definitely opened his eyes and kind of slapped some sense into him, which was really important for him at the time. When we're controlling a young adult's experience and they go without that full range of emotional experience, said the Center's Director for Strategic Initiatives, Courtney Jolie Loudermilk. Wow, what a name. We're actually curbing people's opportunities to live full lives and have the full range of human experience. And as we close that, I will just say that we've created generations of kids who think that they need parents to address everything for them. And then when they get into college, they think they need administrators to cover all this stuff for them. And that is abundantly untrue. And we can see that that's untrue, and we can see how much it weakens them, and we can see what it does to society. And none of it is good, frankly. It's not good, frankly. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking since I'm trying to wrap up quickly. Ooh, I got a super chat. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sourpatch.me. Her full name is .com. I like it. I tried to give a woman a compliment. She's had nice childbearing hips. She didn't talk to me again. Yeah, I don't think saying that a lady has nice childbearing hips is exactly the compliment that it might sound like to the innocent passerby. I don't think that's a very nice thing to say. My great aunt said that to me one time, and I did not find it nice at all. All right. A teacher, professional magazine, literally only content with social justice and actual references about socialism and communism. Yes, that's over on my Twitter. You guys can check it out. We went to bookstore today and I found a teacher's magazine that was just chock full of just the worst of the worst, like actual communist propaganda, so clear, social justice, DIE stuff, and something that other people I don't think have said much about called social and emotional learning. And this is basically how they lever in their social justice worldview. It's like critical race theory, but to do with emotions, which is exciting. I think pretty soon trains won't be able to have a caboose because it is in front of the black booties. I don't know about that. School 101 as in 1984. No, 101 is the first level class in a college. Like I took biology 101, I took anatomy, I think that was 101, and that's just where you start when you go into school. So for someone in college, it makes perfect sense. Now adulting, I take significant exception to because it infantilizes children. But if children have been infantilized by their parents when they get to college, it makes sense to me that they would have a class about this. All right, here. These kids need to learn the skills in school now that their parents never bothered to teach them. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. And I don't think that schools are going to do a good job of it. And I think they're going to bundle in a whole bunch of indoctrination we don't want. Today's 22-year-olds are like 4-year-olds from my era. Yeah, a lot has changed. Homeschooling is not an option for us. It is possibly our first priority as parents. Yes, when I met Andrew Clavin, he said that he had failed at some things in life, but the one thing he succeeded at was making sure that neither of his 2 children ever set foot in a public school. And to that, I definitely tip my hat. I think that's so important. I never set a foot in a public school myself, and I thank my parents for their efforts in doing that for sure. I work in academia, so I see all these kids arriving on campus today who have zero critical thinking or problem-solving skills. Everything has to be put in a linear sequential process for them to understand. Yeah, I know, it's not good. It's really not good. It's really weakening our society. Don't dip out, press the dot. You know, the like buttons. Thanks, Keenan. It's beautiful. It's best to comment on the childbearing hips before checking the teeth. Good dating advice from my husband and his pal here in the chat. I have good teeth though. Look at that. It's because I had braces, so that's fair. I would say it's too much independence, i.e. tablet toddlers, that's contributing to this. The parents aren't there to parent, not to mention the rise of single-parent households. Yes, but latchkey kids are significantly better equipped to handle things like actually being alone than tablet babies are. Tablet toddlers are a different kind of independence that's not organic and it's not good. And I really think we're going to regret what we've done to these poor kids. Jesus is scarier. I let my kid go loads of places without me. I should have done more of that. Yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, because we lived out in the country, I couldn't really go anywhere on my own, but we did go outside all the time. That was our location of choice. We did weapons training with my dad in our barn. We don't run random brigades of people coming to derail a discussion. Yes, that's true. Straight after this, I'm making my bed. Sorry, Jordan Peterson. Yes, you absolutely should. I will say that that is something that you should do. I will not say whether I made our bed this morning. The only way you grow and expose yourself to new ideas is by extending past your comfort zones. Exactly correct. Exactly correct. Giving yourself little victories is a good confidence builder. Always stay just past your comfort zone, says Andy. Yeah, 100%. Completely agree. And it's very gratifying and it's very important to building your own self-esteem is knowing that you can tackle things because you have in the past and you did a pretty good job with that. So you're probably going to do a pretty good job with this. I definitely think that's something that I value. My father told me the same. He said, you go to jail, make some new friends. Yeah, exactly. I hope we get rid of all the parents who tell their children, do as I say, not as I do. Wait a second. I missed that one. I was starting to read a super chat and now it's gone. Oh my gosh, it's gone. No, come back. Oh, I don't know how I lost this. I hate this. This is that jump that Tim was talking tonight. Tim was talking about on the show sometimes. All super chatters tonight are official Sour Patch Lids Gods for Life trademark. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. I just hope we get rid of all the parents who tell their children do as I say and not as I do. Be a good example. Or, better yet, you can be a bad example, because I don't know about you guys, but I personally remember bad examples a lot better than I remember good examples. It's not fun, but it's reality. Young Pei Chang, thank you for your super chat, says Grayson Einstein, nonverbal cue, criminal study. I'm going to have to look that up. All right. It's very difficult to connect with people that have never faced real adversity. Exactly correct. Waffle Sensei says, good mom lids. Thank you. OMG, LOL. I don't know what you're referring to. Unironically voting for Kanye West for the third time in 2024. Okay, if you so desire. Diversity. Oh, yeah. Somebody says DIA. Wait, what? I meant to say DEI. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, or DIE. Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. Who is Andy? I think it's her hubby, but not sure. Yes, this is Andy Leiterman, who is there in the chat with you guys, and he is Mr. Lids. That is correct. I'm still shocked by what Ottawa County, Michigan did this week. I gotta check this out. Joe Bob. No, that's not our friend Joe Bob. DEI office shutdown worries some Ottawa County business leaders. Oh boy, that's exciting to hear, actually. I live in Ottawa County. That's not great. Lids, what are your thoughts on transhumanism? I think you would have to ask Tim and Ian about their thoughts on transhumanism. I don't like the idea of giving control of my body over to something as innocuous as alcohol. I certainly would not want to give over to transhuman features. I went to jail once when I was young. Guess what? I made a point not to break the law again. Denver International Airport is pretty wild with DEI artwork. Yeah, it's crazy. It's not a good time. All right, you guys. I went long tonight, but we had a lot of fun. I love tonight's topics. You guys may tweet at me if you so desire. You also can, let's see, what do I check most often? Honestly, it's Twitter. Twitter is the best way to get a hold of me. If you're not on Twitter, I can firmly recommend it. It's a lot of fun with Elon Musk, and you can follow me and follow who I follow, and we have a good time over there for sure. Andy is also the man in the wedding photo behind Lids and a rollerblading / inline skate genius. Yes, this is Andy. And that is me, looking like I'm about to attack and eat his face. But it's a cute picture, so I keep it behind me, and I love it. We were just talking about how much we like our wedding pictures, and we do. I can't believe we're still in honeymoon phase because we've been married for almost a year and been dating longer than that, and it's wild. A lot of fun. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I always enjoyed chatting with you for sure. Tomorrow I have an appointment in the morning, but then in the evening we're going to be chatting once more. You guys send me your interesting article ideas on Twitter, and I will see what all I can fit in. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and until next time,